Hi everyone, this is Mindy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm creating this serene Christmas card, and I'm also going to show you how I did some selective splattering. The stamp set I'm going to use today is called Peaceful Trees, and this is brand new for September, STAMPtember. This is from CZ Design and Simon Says Stamp. It is an absolutely gorgeous set, and I'll say it's probably one of my favorites from the release. There's a lot of holiday sentiments on here, but it can be used definitely throughout the year. Now, some of the other things that I planned on using is this moon mask from Tim Holtz, and I also thought I would be using a circles masking stencil. So since this is the first time I'm creating this card, I didn't prep it, I didn't try it out ahead of time. Right now, I'm just laying out the idea. So my thought for this was to have these beautiful silhouette trees and then have the moon in the back. So the moon stencil has three different sizes of moons in it. I am using the medium size. Now I'm taking the circle from there. It's just a plain circle from that moon mask, and I'm placing some Post-it tape behind it to secure it in place on my cardstock. This is Hammermill cardstock cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I have found that Post-it tape is really probably the best way to go when it comes to securing this mask in place because I've done repositionable tape over the years, and I find that that still leaves a residue or a mark on my cardstock, and my ink blending catches that. So I find that Post-it tape works really well. Now, the first thing I want to ink blend is a little halo or glow around my moon. And to do that, I'm going to use Antique Linen Distress Oxide ink and also these tiny blending brushes. Now, these are pretty new. I haven't used them a ton, even though I really stocked up on them. And they really come in handy for something like this. So I am just starting off on that moon mask, and I'm very, very lightly blending out towards the edge, or I shouldn't say towards the edge, blending onto the cardstock. So starting on the mask, blending onto the cardstock, and it's giving me that really, really light halo. Next, I'm going to come in with Wilted Violet. So I was thinking a really uh, nighttime serene scene for these trees. The Wilted Violet, I'm starting off the cardstock, blending onto it, and I'm coming just up to that antique linen. I didn't want it to really overlap because I wasn't sure what color combination it was going to give me. So I'm just blending right up to it. I'm going to go a little ways down, but not all the way because I'm going to come in next with Blueprint Sketch. Now this, I'm also starting kind of on my glass work surface and then blending onto the cardstock. I find it easier to blend that way. And for the most part, I'm covering up a lot of the wilted violet, just leaving a little bit of it showing. Then I'm going to deepen all of that up with some chipped sapphire. So again, I'm going to come around the edges, trying to leave a little bit of that blueprint sketch showing. I was trying to leave off black oxide because I didn't want it to be too dark, but I did want to have a nice dark blue background sky. I also kind of had wished at this point that I would have started out with like a light blue halo instead of that yellow. Kind of getting some Halloween vibes out of this because I think I'm just in Halloween mode. But I think a really nice light blue instead of the antique linen, maybe like using tumbled glass would have been really, really pretty with this. So I went back to that antique linen, kind of brought that out just a little bit more, gave it more of a glow. And now I can remove my mask. That Post-it tape didn't leave any residue behind, and now I can do some ink blending on it. Now, the circle masks I showed earlier, I thought of placing over the top to really try and keep within that circle, and I decided not to use them. Instead, I'm still using that tiny blending tool. I'm starting more towards the center of the moon, and then I'm going to blend out towards the edge. So I'm actually going to leave a white edge though. I thought that would really bring out the glow of the moon. So I'm just going to go really light-handed around the center of the moon to kind of give that some color. Then I'm going to bring in the second part of the stencil. Now this can be kind of tricky to hold in place. I rolled up some Post-it tape and placed it on the largest area of the stencil just to help tack that down. And then I'm going to bring in that antique linen again, and I'm going to go over those open areas of the stencil to give me some detail to my moon. I'm not going super light, super heavy handed. because these are pretty delicate areas, and it's going to leave just enough of a look on there. It just, I don't know, it turned out so perfect. Sorry, my brain is still foggy. I'm still recovering yet. I'm pretty stuffed up. So my brain is still foggy trying to find the right words. Uh, I was really feeling at this point it was feeling too Halloween for me. And I like I said, I think that's just because 'cause I'm in full on Halloween mode right now. So I came back in with the blueprint sketch, and I'm trying to cover up that wilted violet. I'm gonna come back in with some of that chipped sapphire and really try and bring the blues out more than that purple. I'm going to put that mask back in place to protect my moon and kind of bring that glow out a little bit more. One of the reasons I use the oxides is because they overlap colors nicely. I mean, they will kind of blend to create another color, but they do overlap nicely. So I know I wouldn't lose that yellow or that antique linen. And I think this came out fabulous. So now I'm going to stamp my trees. So I have my Misti tool and I have a sticky mat inside of my Misti that's going to hold my cardstock in place. These trees are going to be longer than the actual card front. So by placing my cardstock kind of more in the center is going to allow me to place that whole stamp in there. I'm not going to get any weird edges. So I place the trees over the top, and I do have it just slightly overhanging the bottom of my cardstock. Next, I'm going to ink it up with some Versafine black ink. So this is a picky, this is a pigment ink, which means it is going to stay wet a little bit longer than a regular dye ink. So I'm going to stamp that down really well. Now, I think in the end, I ended up stamping it about 3 times because I really wanted it to stand out against that distressed oxide background. So this is looking pretty good, but I'm going to stamp it again. And it's going to take a minute to dry, which I will end up using a heat tool because I don't want to risk smearing anything. And it was really shiny in person, which was telling me that it was pretty wet. So here I just brought in my Ranger heat tool to help dry that background and make sure I don't smear anything. Now, my thought in this is that I wanted to add white splatters for the illusion of snow. So I'm going to bring in my mask once again to cover up most of the trees. I guess in hindsight, I really could have done the splatter over the moon. For some reason, when I was doing this, I thought I needed to mask off the moon. But this does lead me into showing you how I did some selective splattering. Now, this is a white acrylic spray from Hero Arts that I mixed with a little bit of water, and I'm very carefully with a really small paintbrush splattering that onto the background. So I was okay with the splatter being on the trees. I just didn't want it on the moon for whatever reason when I was making this. So just real careful adding the splatters. And now I'm going to remove my mask. And it kind of hit me. I was like, well, I have the moon and I have my trees overlapping the moon. So to do it, I got really close to my trees, very lightly tapped my paintbrush. So I was really trying to focus the splatters. But instead, what I did is I have quite a bit of that spray on my brush. So I am going to take my brush and literally just add little dots myself. So selective splattering, you can get really close to your paper and just tap very carefully, or you can do this as well, where you just are adding your own dots to it. And that way, people are probably going to look at it and be like, how did you do that? How did you get splatter on your trees and not on the moon? So I thought that was a fun little trick that I wanted to show you. Now, once again, I'm going to dry that with my heat tool because I don't want to smear any of that. While it's drying, I'm going to stamp a sentiment. So I am going to turn this into a Christmas card, but again, you could really add any type of sentiment to the front of this at this point. I have the Merry Christmas in this gorgeous font, and I have my white cardstock prepped with an anti-static powder tool. I am stamping this about 2 times, I think I did, in Versamark ink. And then I'm going to sprinkle on some sterling embossing powder. So this is super shiny silver. I'm just going to sprinkle that on and tap off my excess. And then I'm going to melt that with my heat tool. So once I gave that a second to just cool off, I am going to line up the coordinating die. Now these dies get very close to the word. There is a die cutting trick where you could die cut first and lay that open area over your heat embossed words, kind of masking it. I know I've done the trick before. It's a kind of a Gina K Designs trick. I didn't do that. I kind of wish I would have. But I did trim this down to a smaller size so that I could run this through my Platinum Scout, I think it's called. It's a mini die cut machine from Spellbinders. And I die cut it, so it isn't 100% perfect, but it wasn't bad enough that I felt I needed to redo it. So if I were to redo this, I probably would try that die cutting trick to make sure I got it lined up completely perfect. But again, that's just the perfectionist in me. It wasn't bad enough where I felt I had to redo it. So I'm going with it. I did layer it up 2 more times with white cardstock to give it dimension. I have a side folding card base that I added tape runner to, and then I can add my card front to the front of that. Then I'm going to add some liquid glue behind my sentiment and add that over my moon. So I felt like my moon was fairly centered. So I was confident with centering up my sentiment with the moon. And then that is going to finish off the card project. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. This is such a gorgeous set. My absolute favorite, I think, from the release. And I hope by showing you how I kind of did that selective splattering helps you in your card projects if you enjoy splatter as much as I do. Now I have a little bonus information over on my blog, so I will have that linked down below in the video description. Be sure to head over and check that out. I also will have my full supply list down below and on the blog as well with additional pictures of the card. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon, and hopefully I'll be a little bit better. Thanks.